and welcome to this edition of the SAU Report. My guest here today is Dr. Kardas. Welcome.
Hi.
Dr. Kardas is now the Associate Professor here at SAU. Dr. Kardas, could you tell us why you chose to teach here at SAU?
Well, it was really a matter of no choice. I had been at the University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee for 2 years as a lecturer, and in that time I interviewed at 2 schools, one in Iowa and one here, and I was fortunate enough to get the job here at that time, and so I've been here the last 12 years.
What first interested you in psychology?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. After I flunked out of college and went to work for a trucking company, I went back to school and I got admitted. And then when they asked me, they called me back and they said, "No, you hadn't declared a major." I said, "What do you got?" And they said, "Well, we got art, and we got English, and we got journalism, and we got psychology, and we got sociology." I said, "Wait a minute, put me down for psychology." So that's how I became a psychologist. Of course, after that, I started taking some courses, and I really got interested after that, but it was kind of like on a whim at first.
Well, for somebody interested in psychology, what kind of career options are there?
Quite a few, actually. I went to a meeting last year. A fellow from Creighton University gave a very nice talk on there's actually quite a few jobs that somebody would say a bachelor's in psychology could do. Most of them don't really say that they want psychology majors, but the skills that psychology majors have will get them the job, especially in things like that require critical thinking and so on. So there's really a whole host of jobs out there for psych majors if they're willing to look for them.
One question, can you do hypnosis?
No, I don't. Dr. Bates is the hypnotist in our department. I've been hypnotized once, and it was real pleasant.
It was real pleasant.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was asleep, and so it was right in 216, matter of fact. But that was the only time I've ever been.
What did they hypnotize you for?
Just for a demonstration. And we had a fellow come in from Texarkana talk about hypnosis, and I think me and Ed Davidson were about I guess we were tired or something. We just were zonked out there, and they had to bring us out. I don't think we barked like a dog or anything like that.
Are you conducting any special research now?
Some. Mostly what I do now, of course, in this semester, I'm supervising a whole lot of student research. So this is kind of my crazy semester. On the 3rd of April, we have to be at Hendrix with 20 student papers. So basically that's what I'm doing there now. I've got a few projects on tap right now, but I'm not really currently engaged in anything at this moment.
Well, tell me about your research you've been been doing on your computer versus your overhead projector.
Yeah, that's true. I'd forgotten about that. We recently got a grant for some computer equipment, and one of the things I'm interested in doing is seeing if students are more interested or learn better when the information is presented with a computer. So the class that you're in, what I've done is to present one class with computerized information, one class with basically the same information on an overhead, and I'm analyzing that data right now. So that's something. Eventually I'd like to have all my courses basically in a little box that I can bring to class and never have to touch the blackboard again.
Can you tell me how psychology relates to everyday life, maybe?
Well, in lots of obvious ways. I think it's more interesting to ask the question, what can psychology tell us that everyday experience might not tell us? I think a lot of people say, well, psychology is just common sense, but there are things that are not common sense that psychology has found. I think one is one that we're going to talk about soon in class, and that's the issue of the partial reinforcement effect, for instance. Here's a situation. Where do you think, let's say you're raising a child, and every time the child does something, you give the child a reward. will the child work harder for that reward in that situation, or will the child work harder for the reward if you only gave the reward to the child, say, every 10th time the child did something? What do you think? Well, the answer is the every 10th time, and that kind of goes against common sense. You know, you'd think that if every time somebody did something, you'd reward them, that they'd want to do it more. But in fact, it's the other way around.
I have another question. In your lectures, you refer a lot towards sex. Do you think that it keeps a college student more interested in your lecture, or do you just do it for fun?
Well, I guess I would imagine it probably keeps them a little more interested in the lecture. I think I make more of a show out of it than I actually talk about sex. During my evaluations last semester, one of the comments was that I talked about sex too much. So I figured, well, maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I just keep pointing out to the new classes that I had an evaluation that said I talked about sex too much. So I just basically try to keep their interest.
Why is a lot of your research, we've been looking at your research, why is much of your research related on basic to animals?
Well, I was trained as a comparative psychologist, and a comparative psychologist is interested in animals. I've always had an interest in animals, but as you've probably noticed, I keep saying that we're animals too. So it's really not a question of whether I'm interested in animals, but just what kind of animals. I mean, I'm probably just as interested in human animals as I am in other animals. I like to really compare animals to each other. I think it's kind of interesting now that we have a child to see the kinds of ways that he picks up information. He finally became more intelligent than a dog the other day. And of course, for a while there, of course, he was stupider than a dog. But now I can prove that he's more intelligent than a dog at 14 months because I can tell him, go make a basket. And no matter where he is in the house, he'll run to his room, pick up his little basketball, and dunk it in his basket. So I think that's kind of interesting to me that here at 14 months, he can do something that my dog can't. Now, I used to have a dog, Dixie the Wonder Dog. She could go in the kitchen. I could tell her to go wait in the kitchen, but that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming with this edition of SAU Report.